Welcome to the Up and Comers Show. This is a podcast all about learning how to live a good life. I am a little hot on the levels as I'm saying that because I'm so excited to be here with my bro. Be here with my bro, Civ Adam.
Yeah!
We're back in
Excited.
it. We're learning how to live a good life. We're finding intention in the tension. That's a mantra. And it's Christmas. So deck the halls.
And let's just say from here to there. You know, I just kind of want to start on this note right here that there's this green book I'm holding up in the camera. That's all Thane can see.
It's nice.
And Thane, I just want you to know that I think you should get this book and read it because the guy who wrote it's pretty cool. I think you have a lot in common with him. See his golf flag right here on the top? The period at the end of this, I don't know if you can tell, but the period at the end of this title is a golf ball,
wow.
And then there's a flag at the top.
Whoever his designer was, that dude is just on fire.
I know. It reminded me of Jay-Z. I was like, man, this guy is very similar in talent.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
it had to have been a copycat for sure.
I felt like this was worth mentioning, that there's a book out there on the interwebs these days that's green, and it says From Here to There, and it's a quarter-life perspective on the path to mastery. And the dude has your name, but his middle name's different. His middle name is Marcus.
Oh, that's weird.
So,
yeah.
What's your middle name? Isn't it Mitch? Or
Mitch is
Magnus?
too white for me.
I think it's Magnus. Pedro?
Yeah, Pedro Gonzalez. That's my middle name hyphen. We're off to a hot start here, folks.
Dude, this goes so well, though.
Oh, man. Wow.
So, yeah. No, dude, I appreciate the book. I actually got a copy in the mail, and then I bought one on Kindle. So now I've got it digitally and physically. And I feel like if I could sum this book up in one word, it's like the Lincoln Memorial to discipline. So as I look at it sitting on my shelf, it's like this little Lincoln Memorial to be a disciplined person and live a disciplined life and where it can take you. So it's a memento to me. Obviously, it's a good book and I'm enjoying it. I'm about a quarter of the way through it. But
pun intended.
From what I've read so far, yeah, quarter. So, but what I've read so far, it's clearly such a high call to, you know, like wake up and be more intentional and serious about my disciplines and about. Let me tell you a story that leads up to this, if we can take the time. And this is all about this book I think everybody should go get. But 60-second story is that one of our partners at the firm where I work, he came down to visit us. He lives in Indiana. And took me to coffee, and he said, hey, Adam, how are things going? You know, just kind of getting the State of the Union speech from me. And I feel like my levels are kind of low. Maybe I should move in. Okay, there we go. So he asked me how things are going, and so one of the things I said was just how I had so many things on my plate that I had learned to let some things go, in the sense of I can't be perfect at everything, and I can't be the master of everything. So I have to narrow my scope, and then sometimes I just have to be willing for it to be not perfect and me not be a master at it, and basically embrace complacency. And I'm trying to weave that in a poetic way so like he understands where I'm coming from. And after I get done saying that, he looks at me in the face and he goes, Adam, if you do that, I'll fire you. I'll fire you myself. And I was like, you son of a gun. Because I knew he was right, but that conversation is what has spurred me into this next gear for 2019 and my business there. And the last 2 months have been completely different this year than it was beginning of the year, just because of that mindset of don't be okay with complacency, and actually that mastery is achievable, you know, a certain definition of mastery, and it is the journey and pursuit of it that is the reward itself. And I'm gypping my clients if I don't pursue mastery and if I just get into a pattern and do it over and over, right? And so it's interesting that he had that conversation with me, and then you sent me this book, and then I started reading it, you know. So that's kind of my story that I think anyone could take away the same reaction, and that is if you're in that place where you need that challenge, from a very personal perspective of golf to a more universal application of the principles, it's hard to beat. I really enjoyed it.
Well,
It's kicking me in the pants.
Everyone listening, I did not pay him to say that, even though it was worth some.
That wasn't even on our docket here.
Well, it's interesting. I actually have a parallel illustration. So this is true. Like, honest, I love the point you just made because it's true in all of our lives, right? The easier path is always to settle. Settling is the natural default. If it doesn't happen, if we don't have intention with our lives, we're going to settle. And it happens very sneakily, and it can happen in what seems to be a wise way. And there's things that we have to, there's trade-offs, right? You can't do everything. So there's that component of it. But so today I had a phone call scheduled with a guy. I've been casting my net far and wide for all things book related, just to see what, being my own PR firm, that's kind of what you do. And this guy that I scheduled a call with, he is actually he's a CEO founder of a couple companies down in San Diego, and he decided to take a call with me, right? And so coming into it, I knew I wanted to be a little bit prepared just to know who he was, and since I cast so many nets, it's like, well, don't want to just like get him confused with someone else and really value his time. So I get on the call, and we hop through 15 minutes of kind of getting to know each other, 20 minutes or so, and then near the end of it, he kind of slapped me on the face, which was great. I needed it. But it was basically that, look, like, as much as it's great to hop on a call with someone like that and connect and see what possibilities there could be, if I don't come in with my ish together, with a clear ask exactly why I wanted to have this call and exactly what the outcome I'm looking for is, it's going to be a waste of his time and mine, ultimately. And he kind of just lovingly slapped me with that, and it was a really good reminder, because taking ownership and never settling, which is kind of the two tenets of the book, is something that we have to do daily, and it doesn't matter who you are or where you're at. It's still an active choice. It doesn't happen by chance. And I didn't do a great job of that in that call. I didn't come in prepared to really fully, I respected his time. It wasn't like, a tragedy, and he was very kind and gracious and still helpful, but I want to use those to the best of my ability, which means coming in with a clear ask and showing him that I really respect that and value the fact that he's taking a call with me. And so I just share that to highlight the fact that, man, we all need those reminders daily, and it doesn't matter where you're at or what you're doing. It's not the natural response. We have to have intention and fight for it a lot of times.
What kind of ask is he wanting you to make? Like what? Give me an example.
Well,
I feel like it's pretty straightforward. Here's my book. This is what it's about.
Yeah, but I wasn't even like, that wasn't, I didn't, it was on me. It wasn't on him. It was on me because I made it more like, so I've been doing a lot of pre-calls for podcast interviews. So I came into it subconsciously kind of like one of those calls where we're going to more get to know each other, share stories, that kind of thing. And that's not what this call was. That's part of what this call was, but I didn't have the second half of the call in my mind coming in with clear, asks. So that was just kind of my confusion with too many moving pieces, and not taking enough time to really get clear on that. So, but nonetheless, it's just it was a good lesson for me to learn in a very easy way to. It was like no cost really. It was just a helpful reminder.
Seems like a little nitpicky, but that's okay. Just being honest.
Yeah, totally. But I appreciate those words, man. I really do. It's one of those things too. When you're writing the whole time, it's like 18 months that go from start to finish of a project. You have no idea. At the end of the day, you really don't know if it is going to be enjoyable or helpful for people to read. It's a crapshoot a lot of times, and so just to have some feedback over the last couple of months from people that's the most rewarding thing of this whole journey for sure. So thank you.
That's very cool.
So I want to talk a little bit about this year, and we're over 2 years in the runnings here with the Up and Comers show. We're coming up on Christmas. How do you think about this time of year, this season that we're in, and what are your favorite parts of Christmas? I want to hear kind of what your end of year process is like.
So this year is different than most years because this is our first Christmas married.
Holler.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And I think the biggest change is things like, it was not optional whether I put a Christmas tree up. It was not optional for me to put Christmas lights on the house.
The real question is real or fake?
Yeah, no, it's fake this year. I think we'll probably do real maybe in the future, but she was cool with fake, and I was very cool with it, so that's fine. But then the big thing is the lights on the house. I mean, that's a pretty big endeavor.
Did you go
instead of
all
getting
white or what did you go with?
Yeah, instead of getting like the Walmart lights with strings that if one of them goes out, it all fails. We got this like really bougie set of lights that is it's like a custom solution to where they clip on the shingles, the mounts do, and it holds each bulb up straight. So it's like a bulb every foot or so. And they're pretty big bulbs, and they're LED, and they're shatterproof and all this stuff. And then, so when you get to the end of a run, you can just cut the cord, and you really simply splice in a female connector and then a male over here. And now you custom create links to go right around your house and eaves and everything. And there's a friend of mine that has a company in town that does that as part of his company and services he offers, and he sold it to me, but usually he'll put them up for you too. But instead he sold them to me for a little less, so I did it myself, and that was fun. But anyway, and we started with just the front eave of the house, but then we're going to do all the rest of the eaves and the top of the peak. Of course, we got all these plans, but you got to start somewhere, and these things are expensive. So I was like,
yes.
I'm not spending $1,000 on Christmas lights. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Trade-offs.
That was the main thing.
Dang, I love it. Yeah, do you have any end of year reflection time? Like, do you carve out time to think back, and what's that look like for you?
Yeah, very much so. My brother and I have been talking about this recently, how you've got to have a good balance between, time that is focused and reflective and in a dream state where you analyze where you're going and where you've been, and you set new goals for the future. And I think I was very good at that, during college and right after college, because I really didn't have a whole lot to do necessarily as far as like I have to get done, And now that I do, there was a distinct shift in my time management where I just stopped doing that because I was like, hey, I've got plenty to do without dreaming up more crap to do. And so, but now I realize that, there is a tension between those two, as we've talked about before. And I think for me, I've settled into a rhythm of, monthly, having an alert on my calendar on the first of the month to review the previous month and ask myself those kind of core questions of, did I do the right kind of activity? Just because I was busy doesn't mean I was profitable. And then at the end of the year, ask myself what profitable means. Like, what am I building? And so this is my second year as an advisor in my career, so that's kind of fresh, and these reflections keep compounding at a rapid rate on the front end here, and things are changing for the good. And I've really, I got to the point where I wasn't really excited to get up to go to work every day, and now I'm to the point where I am again. You know what I mean? And that's a distinct shift for sure.
I'm curious what do you define as profitable in what you just mentioned?
That's kind of one of the big points that everybody has to kind of decipher for themselves. To me, I guess what I mean by profitable, number one, is that when it comes to the world and commerce and the world of business, am my activities leading to a point where either for right now or for the future, my hours are being compensated for in my work? Because if they're not, there's probably something wrong. And I'm not saying that, everybody has to be profitable all the time with their work, but for me in my career path, I do. And so if the activity I'm doing right now isn't somehow leading to a more profitable future, then I'm wasting my time. So if I'm sitting back just tweaking back office because it's interesting, that's not going to lead to a more profitable future. But if I'm spending time with a client who I'm investing in, and who knows where that leads, right? Or then those things, or if I'm gathering new business, or if I'm maintaining relationships, strengthening them, all that is my core business. So it really, to me, is a way of refining in my world of business, my actions, and to make sure that they all come back to that core principle of profitability, and then long term that profitability equals success. And so now that term of profitability isn't just monetary, it's profitable in that, is that action worth anything? And that's a definition of value. And so that is what I love talking about with regard to Christian businessmen, because what is valuable? Is it the dollar? Is it income? Or is it your ability to reach numbers of people? Is it quality? Is it quantity? Right? And so for me, those things have all been refining, and they will continue to refine of what God is calling me to value over other things, because we can't all do everything all the time. So what is it that God has called me to do?
Yeah, and it's a blessing to be called to specific things. Like that's
absolutely.
That's what we got to lean into. And I think it's cool that, that's what I was going to underscore, is that profitability does not need to have a direct correlation to money, even though it does within the business context for sure. But that's a term and an idea that transcends just money, and goes into values, like you're saying. Is this something that's profitable for my time, in the senses, especially as believers, right? Is this furthering the promotion of human flourishing in some way? Is this furthering the distribution of God's kingdom, right? Is this impacting lives, and loving others as a result of loving God? Those are things that we get to use to evaluate. Is this profitable in just life as a Christ follower? But in business, that's a huge part of it as well. Is like, okay, like you said, does the time value of money, and is this something that directly leads to X or Y or Z? And so I think it's a cool word to use to describe a lot of like self-evaluation as well.
Definitely. Yeah, so that's kind of a lot of what I'm thinking about at the end of the year. But I was going to ask you, from your perspective and how your year has ended up. This has been kind of the culmination to another period of your life where you spent a lot of time. Maybe this was your first priority, out of other things in your life, and now that chapter is closing, at least in the production element of it. So now, as you look forward, what have you learned from this year and or this 18 months, and then how is that impacting your outlook on the future?
Oh man, it's huge. Like this year, the word of do you do words of the year at all?
Not really. I'm ashamed to say.
Well, it's something my sister got me started on, and I love it. It's basically picking a word of the year.
Well, we did talk about this actually, and I did have a word of the year. It was achieving.
Nice.
Remember we talked about this January, February? Yeah,
mine was build. And this year has been a ton of that, like just building. And it was funny how it progressed, because at the start it's exciting, it's novel, I'm building, this is fun. And then 4 or 5 months in, you're like, yeah, I'm still building, and there's still 6 months to go, And that's the small picture of life in general. But so, that theme of patience and persistence really stood out to me as I just focused on building and pushing these balls forward without knowing what's to come. And it's been cool. Like, honestly, God has grown my faith tenfold what I would have otherwise, if God didn't allow me to pursue what I have been this year. So that faith journey that He's brought me on has been the biggest blessing, regardless of any of the other things. So I'm just so grateful for that. But it's definitely been a huge chunk of time invested in that little green book, and all of the different layers and aspects to it. It's just, I never knew until you never know until you go through it, right? Experience is the most expensive currency. So it was a really fun process, a really growing process, and now I'm excited to really shift that effort and energy into and not leave the book behind, right? But shift the focus away from it into really speaking and development coaching are the two areas that I feel God really highlighting, and I'm going to lean into here. And so I'm excited to just see what those that renewed focus or the shift in focus in those is going to lead to. And Yeah, I think I'm excited to start seeing more fruits of the labor. It's been a lot of year where it's just been a lot of work, a ton of labor, and not much fruit. And the cool thing about that is that, we like to take ownership of bringing the fruit, but at the end of the day, God is always the one that brings the fruit in His time and in His season, no matter how much we feel like we're in control of that. So I think He's been really instilling that in my brain. I really want to carry that forward with me as like a humble and a humility and reminder that I just need to trust and depend on God alongside being faithful. So a lot of good reflections just going on this last couple of days, and thinking about this year. And I'm excited to have some time in Kansas to really give it a full debrief, getting some perspective, getting out of LA to get a new, look on life. So yeah.
So for your future, are you thinking about are you making, well, I guess you did just say that, developmental coaching and, speaking.
Yeah.
So coffee's not in that picture, or at least not major.
Coffee's still in it right now. But that's definitely not it's the least attached to the vision. In the short run, it's a way to earn some money. It's a way to continue getting small business experience, which is helpful in my coaching with others. That was a big motivation for it, is I want to get some experience of running a small business outside of golf, and that way I can better help the people I work with. So that's been helpful in accomplishing that. And it's been fun. I really enjoy it. So it's a really cool thing. So it's going to be there until it doesn't need to be there, which is going to be, I think, in the near future. Either find people that come on and take it on and partner with them, or sell it off. There's definitely different options, but that's that'll be it's the least attached to the vision of what I'm currently doing. So it's still attached because it is something that I enjoy. It's something that it can make money and generate revenue, and it's something that can bless others. And I'm using it at my church, and that's been really cool to just support them. But yeah, that'll be next year. I would be surprised if I still was operating it by the end of next year.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I mean, I know when we talked, when did I come out to Kansas? Was that a year and a half ago?
Dude, man. It's been a while.
I think so.
Yeah.
June, maybe summer of last year, 17. But when I was out there, we even talked about how, you thought about opening up a coffee shop, for example. So it's interesting to see that, you've come another step since then as far as identifying your vision and what God has called you to. And I guess one thing I was wondering is, how do you make the decision to stay on your own and try to build that brand versus do your brother-in-law, who we've had on the podcast before, actually, and join up with a team or something?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a hard evaluation. So I really take that before the Lord. So part of it is that. Part of it is practicality, right? I mean, if I get to a place where I'm not going to pay bills, then yeah, that's a need, right? You need to pay bills. And so that would be the needed shift. And I think that would be great. I think part of the heart evaluation for me is what I'm doing an idol? Is something that I'm doing, am I hanging on to it too much? Do I care about this more than I care about God? And if I don't, and I feel at peace about it, even if it doesn't make perfect sense, I have confidence that this is the path that God wants me on for now until He changes that. And it is what I want to do. So I think that's part of it. I'm not opposed, though. I'm not opposed to joining with larger forces. And I'm already, everything I'm starting now, I'm doing it with other people. So I think I've already experienced the limitations of a one-man team, which is very limited. And so all of the things that I'm starting, which I've got a couple new projects I'm working on and building right now, and all of those involve multiple other people, and I'm a piece of the puzzle. I'm not the puzzle. And it's been really good. It's been really good to learn through that experience and lean into just support of others and leveraging each other, as you mentioned. So it'll be fun to see.
Yeah, that's cool.
How about you?
Sounds
So when you think about 2019, I hope you pick a word for the year again. We should talk about this in 2019. Are you going to do it? Are you and Faith going to do it?
Yeah, we should definitely. I'll talk to her.
Okay. So when you approached a new year, do you have a process for approaching it? And then if you do, like, how have you been thinking about it, or what's already on your heart from God in approaching this new year, and what like who is the Adam you imagine it in December 2019?
It's interesting that my initial reaction to that question is I don't have time to figure all that out. So I think that I do have time. It's more of a issue at this point of I think who I will be in 2019 will be determined by how I answer this question, because my 2018 self says he's very aware of the limits of thinking, and also very aware of the limits of thinking and its profitability. Like, how profitable is it to sit and think about this? And so how long should I think about it? You know what I'm saying? I think that my 2018 self was more cynical about that, and I think my 2019 self will probably have a better balance about it, because I know that I know I'm regaining. Even my blog post recently is about regaining the life of the mind that I've kind of fallen away from because of just busyness and, again, priorities. For me, building my business is number one, and profitability in the more strict sense of being profitable as a business is the most important thing in my life. And I think God has called me to that, because He's called me to this business, and I got to toe my weight and work my wife out of a job in the next 2 or 3 years, which is my goal. So building that ethically, morally, and responsibly is my goal. But at the same time, I want to make sure, and I've made sure that in a very like checkup way, that every week I say, hey, is my heart in the right place with this, like you're talking about? But it's not it's just a very short checkup, you know. And I think that's what Christmas is for me, is to get that New Year's resolution. But I'm interested to see how it all pans out. Like, am I going to be that guy who, like, is this a sustainable, healthy relationship that I have with the life of the mind? Or am I going to change a little bit to be a little more, I don't know, thinky? Because it's amazing. I used to be so in my mind, and now I'm not. And my quality of life now is better than it was then. And not just that, but I think I'm more profitable for the Lord that way. And I dip into the mind when I need to. But so I think that's one of the biggest things I'm working through is I was very extreme thinky in the past, and to the point where I got so cynical I became A.W. Tozier, A.W. Pink, who, hermetized himself because he's like, there's no hope for society. It's just, that's not practical. I mean, that is the logical extreme of too much thinking. And so there's a too much thinking and there's not enough thinking. And so at this point in 2018, my mantra was achieving, which is put your head down, stop questioning it, follow the system, and repeat it every day. Do it again. And then that was very humbling for me and difficult to submit myself and my creativity and all this, insight that I have to just following the system. And we talked about this, being a robot for a while and learning your career. And then later, now I'm at the point where I am genuinely at a form of mastery with the career, and I can be more creative. And so, and that's really where I am in all of my life. Like, the college ministry is the same way. I've got enough at church. I've got enough mastery of just the fundamental tools of ministry that I can get creative with it now. Now, what's the Lord going to do with that? 2019 is kind of that year where I've gotten into all these areas enough, even marriage, where now I think the first thing that popped into my head when you said, what's your word for 2019, is faithfulness. Because now I think I'm going to have no problem being creative now. Once you start that flame, it's like, here we go. Every new thing is shiny, and oh yeah, let's do that, or it's interesting. Ooh. But faithfulness to your commitments is what grounds you back. Even though I have no problem with the jet fuel. Like, I'm the jet fuel guy. But when that happens, maintain your commitments. And that's what makes you a good man. So
faithfulness to commitments. That's just so good. That is it, right? I mean, on all fronts in life, and we are so
and dude, the other thing about that is being willing to admit you were wrong about committing to things. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because you either be faithful to your commitments, or you let a couple of them die out because you're too coward to say, "Yo, that was a bad call. I'm not committed to this." You know?
Totally. Yeah, and there is like that. There's the gray in that is how long you are committed to it before you know, and a week doesn't count, right? That's not a real commitment.
Oh yeah.
But a month may, and it really depends on who you are and your experience within it. But there definitely a commitment is not blind, right? Walking by faith is not blind, but it doesn't entail only partial vision. And so it's like that quote Anne Lamott uses in her book that writing a novel is like driving a car at night. You can only see as far as the headlights, but you can make the whole trip that way. And that's life.
That's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah, it is really good.
Oh, man.
And that, I want so bad to be, like, every day I am mildly frustrated to extremely frustrated at how many people I meet who seemingly have no concept of the reality we live in, of the reality that every day is precious and they're going to die one day. And when they die, all that's going to matter are things that they seem to not care about, And it drives me up. I just get so righteous anger on that. And that's what drives me, genuinely. I mean, I get up and it's like it haunts me. And I think the fear of death is the thing that keeps you driving to realize that I don't want to waste it. I don't want to waste all the blessings I've been given. And I still struggle in a lot of ways. It's not like I've got it all made in the shade, but I feel like a king, because of what I've been through and what I haven't had in the past. And so now more than ever, it's fresh to me, and I want to make those commitments new and not get to that point where 10 years from now you're fat, happy, and lazy, and you don't live with death in sight,
And I think that's also like what's so good about what we talked about earlier with those like reflection times, because reflection is ultimately making those commitments anew again, right? It's like, okay, see what I did? Oh no, like this is still my vision is. This is still a good thing. I'm committed anew to it, right? And that's like every morning. I mean, I'm human, so I've missed a few here and there, but literally 95% of the mornings, after go to the restroom and putting my contacts in, I'm going down on my knees at my bed and offering up a prayer to God, as absent-minded as it may be at times. But just honestly, I've found for me, getting on my knees is like the best action I can do, because it's like it's forcing myself and my subconscious to be humble, whether or not my mind is actually there. And man, like that gets me fired up, because that helps me remind myself and commit anew that every day is a gift, getting to thank God at the start of it for it. And the challenge then comes to reminding that throughout the day, which is usually pretty poor. But nonetheless, a commitment anew is that's super important. I'm excited. I'm excited to chat. I think I've got my word, but I don't want to reveal it yet because we're gonna have some time with my family. So I'll wait till 2019. God's been having it on my heart, so we'll leave it as a teaser. But I'm really interested to see how this plays out, because it could be really interesting. I'm just gonna drop the teaser in there.
That's awesome.
Well, dude, thanks for the chat. We're gonna sound out.
Thank you.
We're gonna say Merry Christmas to all y'all out there. We do have 49 rating and reviews right now. So if you want to drop us a little Christmas present, leave us another rating and review so we can get to 50.
Have we read all those on air?
Say what?
Have we read all of those on air?
Most of them. They're not all of them are comments, so they're just clicking the 5-star. But, the other thing that's actually really helpful that we haven't really asked much for is subscribing. If people subscribe, then they will get new episodes updated automatically, and that would actually be really helpful. So
that's great.
Click that
subscribe baby.
Button. But
and I'm gonna one more thing. The best book I've ever read on Christmas, and we got to figure out yours too. Mine is A Hidden Christmas by Tim Keller. It's a short 120-page book, small pages, big print, that is so concise about Christmas, and he hits on so many topics, like the true definition of the gospel and what Christmas really means, obviously, but things that don't even talk about that, like fairy tales. He has one of the best things on quotes on fairy tales in that book, and how they help us see the gospel. Because at the end of the day, the fact that a deity becomes a little baby and grows up into a man who lives this life and does all these crazy miracles and then dies and then raises from the dead and then lives forever and is going to come back and defeat the entire enemy and reestablish a new earth. I mean, that's fairy tale drama. That's not realistic. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, I mean, it's better than any
awesome.
fairy tale that's ever been written. Like, you can't make this thing up.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things he says, but even, Tolkien, how you say that guy's name? He's dead, who knows? I'll call him Tolkien if I want to. So, he wrote Lord of the Rings, and he wrote also an essay called On Fairy Tales. Very, very creative title. And it's like one of the seminal essays on fairy tales, and in it he basically says that it's amazing. You got to look it up, but that every fairy tale ever to exist, if it is good or true or beautiful in any way or epic in any way, has at its core the true fairy tale of the gospel. And it's all pointing that way, and that's why I love Disney and fairy tales. Anything now, modern Disney gets a little crazy with all these feminist crap, but anyway. That's no story. But like the old good true, like the good, upholding good values type stuff, it's just so good.
Yeah, no, I don't have a book about Christmas other than the Bible, which, that's probably the best one out there.
Well played.
But there's a sermon I heard by John Tyson. I think I sent it to you on kind of the context of Christ's birth, like what he was born into. That was phenomenal, all about who King Herod actually was and how he was one of the most powerful, dominant rulers of all time. And for, the shock factor, the shock waves that were sent through the whole city when the wise men came, said that the king was born. I mean, that just was like a shock wave, literally. So there's a great sermon I'll put in the show notes at theupandcomershow.com/episodes. What are we naming this?
Christmas.
Okay. I feel like we might have already had one of those.
Book.
Should we do cheer?
Cheer?
Yeah. Like Christmas cheer?
Oh.
We'll go cheer. I wish you guys could see the face Adam's making right now. It's pretty epic.
How about Vision?
Vision? Okay. Well, let's go super Vision on it.
I think the biggest topic we talked about was next year's Vision or something like that.
Yeah, we'll go Vision. theupandcomershow.com/episodes/vision. We'll put the links
vision.
there. And,
Thank you for the links. I'm not doing anything, bro. Just keep talking.
All right,
just
bro.
Being normal.
Yeah, just being the normal you. No, hey, y'all, we hope you have an up-and-coming week. Go check out that book.
Up-and-coming week.
That sermon.
Check it out. Check out the sermon.
the little green bug. Shout out to that cool designer, whoever.
Check out that golf ball.
That golf pin.
You got to buy the book so you can see each chapter, too, because each chapter has a little design, too. It's cool.
Fun fact. Sneak peek. You heard it here first, folks. All right, we out. Keep striving, fam, and Merry Christmas to you. Yeah.